then I'm really pleased to welcome Chantal van Haan from the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, IUCN to its friends. Chantal is the European Programme Manager for Nature-Based Solutions and Acting Director for the IUCN European Regional Office. In the UK, we probably know IUCN best for its publication of the Red List of Endangered Species. But IUCN is so much more than that. I've been involved with IUCN for years as a member of their Urban Conservation Strategies Specialist Group. And lately I've had the privilege to serve on their task force on COVID-19 and protected areas. IUCN is a large, influential and important international organization, which is becoming increasingly involved with the conservation of biodiversity in urban areas. And Chantal is right at the heart of that work. So I'm going to say thank you so much for being here today. And I'm going to hand over to you now, Chantal, to tell us more about IUCN's activities to promote local action for urban nature. Chantal. I'm sorry, Chantal, you're still on mute.
My apologies. So thank you very much, Pete, and it's a great pleasure to be here with you today. And I'm also very pleased to learn from you and to have this conversation about green infrastructure. So what I would like to share with you is some insights in IUCN's vision for protecting biodiversity and upscaling nature-based solutions in urban areas around the world, as well as some of the tools for knowledge and partnerships for action that we have. And I hope you can see my screen. I'm not sure in the meantime if I can keep also admitting participants to the meeting, but yeah, I'll try to do my best on that. We are well aware that human activity has impacted nature in practically every part of the world. Wild plants and animals are at risk of extinction. Deforestation and land degradation are causing water scarcity and erosion, and climate change leads to acidification of oceans, water scarcity, and unbearable temperature increase. And I think, as we all know, our urban ecosystems are highly degraded. We see poor planning, sealing soils, and little space for vegetation. So what we see, and I think you all face that as well in your day-to-day work, is that there is a lot of benefits for urban planning if we recognize that connection between cities and their natural surroundings, as there's so much to learn from that extraordinary wisdom that nature has. And in today's highly urbanized environment, often we don't hear that voice of nature. Cities do harbor, however, a very significant fraction of the world's biodiversity, being often located in very rich natural ecosystems, even though we don't always know or see that. And cities can therefore also be made more livable again and more resilient if we manage to bring in nature-friendly urban design and learning from nature. So as Pete already mentioned, IUCN is one of the world's oldest environmental organizations, and is our mission to protect biodiversity and ensure the sustainable use of natural resources. And we do that together with our members, more than 1,400 worldwide, both governments and NGOs, but since recently also subnational governments and indigenous leaders as membership categories. So when it comes to IUCN's cooperation with cities, this has become a growing priority, as traditionally we have focused, of course, on pristine nature areas. But now we see cities and subnational governments as key partners in achieving our international mission for protecting biodiversity, but also to promote the upscaling of what we call nature-based solutions for the many urban challenges that we see. So in order to strengthen IUCN's urban work and foster this cooperation collaboration with cities, we have established something that is called the IUCN Urban Alliance in 2018, led by my colleague Russell Gold. And this Urban Alliance aims to bring together the expertise of IUCN worldwide, including the expertise of the commissions that Pete also referred to, the Commission on Protected Areas, on the Red List of species, but also on environmental law and environmental education. And this Urban Alliance is now establishing an Urban Nature Index, a tool that helps cities to assess their natural assets, and with that integrate nature better in urban planning and decision-making processes, so that nature-based solutions can be implemented on a bigger scale. And on this slide, I've listed some of the initiatives that we in IUCN are part of, and that also help to deliver on these ideas. So one initiative is a project called Grow Green that I'm involved in myself. It's an EU-funded project for climate and water resilience in cities through nature-based solutions. And we work in this project with a number of European cities, Manchester, Valencia, Wrocław in Poland, Modena in Italy, Brest in France, and also with Wuhan in China, as these cities are either implementing nature-based solutions or developing strategies so that they can implement these solutions in the future. And what IUCN does is we help to create synergies for learning, but also capacity building. So we have done, for example, recently a webinar on what we call these Chinese sponge cities idea, which is a way to integrate technical and natural solutions to flooding. So in this way, we try to get access to good knowledge, good practices. And in this project, Manchester, for example, has now established what they call a climate resilient park in the West Gorton neighborhood, a park that drinks water, a 1.3 million project that is designed with nature-based solutions to absorb rainwater and reduce flood risk in the surrounding area. It reuses this rainwater, and it also is part of the last element in regeneration of this West Gorton area, which has been invested in since 2010. Another initiative we're part of is Cities with Nature, and this initiative is a cooperation with ICLEI and the Nature Conservancy, so working with cities around the world, giving access and providing a platform for cities to engage and connect and to work towards shared commitment for sustainability. And I see that your hand is raised, Pete.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We can't see your slides changing. So, there we go. And now we can see your presenter view, so we can see your.
Now you can.
You know,
Okay.
and the
Yeah.
slides.
Okay. I'm sorry about that. So here is the slide with these different initiatives. And so I mentioned already Grow Green and Cities with Nature. And we also have an initiative in IUCN that's called Panorama Solutions, a thematic community for sustainable development. And that has now created a recent component on urban development and resilience, which comprises hundreds of inspiring and impactful scalable solutions for conservation and development from around the world. And you can go there and read more, and also find the contact details of different partners in cities and regions around the world. And we are also very much welcoming new case studies on this platform if you would be interested to share some of your work and learning. And in this way, we hope to create a great inspiring place for learning and sharing. So that is something that is under development. We have also an ongoing European project that's called Network Nature, which is the so-called European platform for nature-based solutions that brings together the state-of-the-art evidence and best practices on nature-based solutions, not only for cities, but also across different landscapes. And in this way, we hope to expand the community that is active on promoting and upscaling these nature-based solutions, working with sectoral champions, and also looking at those actors that have have a major impact on the landscape decisions, such as landowners and forest owners, but also the finance and infrastructure sector. And this project is organizing dialogues for exchange, but also offers an online opportunity for learning on case studies and best practices. And yeah, we also hope that you may be able to join us for some of the future dialogues. We're planning one next year that looks at the examples of nature-based solutions in the Nordic countries of Europe. And we also are planning one that focuses on green job creation together with the International Labour Organization, with whom IUCN has a partnership. And then the last initiative that I mentioned here on this slide is called Nature for All. That is an initiative that was launched during the IUCN World Congress in 2016 by the IUCN World Commission on Protected Areas and the IUCN Commission on Education and Communication. It's a global movement to inspire love for nature. It connects people with nature, and it brings together fantastic stories and also tools for education and volunteer action to bring nature closer to people's day-to-day lives. And I think it's a growing movement, and if you have a chance to take a look at the website, you may find some interesting handbooks and information that that might be useful for you. So then I hope you can see this slide. I wanted to talk a bit about IUCN's global standard for nature-based solutions. So as you may know, IUCN has launched this concept of nature-based solutions about 10 years ago in order to create more awareness for the opportunity that nature provides to address a range of societal challenges. And it's based on the idea that when we protect, restore, and ensure the sustainable use of natural resources, we can manage to respond to many of the challenges we see today, such as food and water scarcity, but also climate change and health, and even economic development. And in order to make this concept more adapted to the needs of users, we have developed a number of criteria that can help to provide guidance on how to develop solutions that are very effective and also provide these multiple benefits, in particular also for funders and investors, but also decision makers at landscape level, to see that the projects they propose are complying with the best practice, but also can create opportunities for engagement with local stakeholders. So this standard is now available, and we're also in the process of developing a certification along with that. There is a governing body that will look at these criteria and also make it even more fit for purpose, whether it's for a company or for a local or regional government, or maybe other individuals who want to use nature-based solutions. So that is for us an important basis for the work that we're doing. I also wanted to look a little bit at the aspect of financing, which of course is very often the main challenge when we think about nature, and it's often considered a more expensive solution than traditional infrastructure solutions. But what we see also through our project in Europe and globally is that it helps a lot if we bundle our forces, meaning that we work together with different actors in the private sector, in civil society and in science, but also when it comes to cities or municipalities, that we can create a group that has similar challenges and can in that way access funding at a scale that is more, let's say, usual for especially the big private investment. And we see, of course, many initiatives nowadays, such as green bonds, innovative mechanisms, but we also sometimes see that a smaller city or municipality is not always able to bring together the capacities to tap into those types of resources. So at this moment, IUCN at the global level has joined a partnership with a capital investment company, with BNP Paribas Bank, and with Regions 20, a initiative for climate action. And this is meant to help municipalities and provinces with mid-sized infrastructure projects to invest in nature and in creating awareness for the role that nature has in finding climate solutions. It also is meant to aim at learning across cities, so peer-to-peer learning, and to also send positive signals also for political decision making that this type of investment can be a good alternative and an addition to already existing financial schemes. So IUCN's role in this particular initiative is to provide technical capacity to develop these portfolio of projects, and to also make sure that those who implement these ideas are trained and get ways to deliver on the environmental benefits and social benefits, in addition to that financial performance that is expected by the financing companies. So yeah, I think that yeah, if you don't know IUCN so well, there may be a lot yeah to gain in terms of looking at us as a network with partners and members who are present in many countries of the world, and we as a global secretariat, so I'm based in our European office, but we have also offices in other parts of the world. We try to make those connections. So we have, on the one hand, we provide scientific knowledge, for example, on assessing the status of threatened species and habitats, but we also work with different stakeholders, and we also try to bring them together and for them to learn and share, and to have a neutral platform for exchange. So this is for us also one of the main unique assets of what we call this union, which gathers every 4 years in the IUCN World Conservation Congress. So the latest Congress was held in Marseille in September, and with that meeting we have now also a new membership category, as I mentioned, for subnational governments, and this is for us a new way to step up action and cooperation across the world, and particularly also in Europe, where the European Regional Office has been working for many years on this urban sphere of work to help cities and to provide our knowledge and expertise, as well as capacity building and financing actions, so that we can work in synergy and also help to mobilize new investment in nature-based solutions. And in an urban context, that means investment in trees, in rivers, in restoration of wetlands and urban forests and other vegetation, so that these services that nature provides can find their way to cities and address the challenges that we see. Of course, many of us are confronted now with the climate change effects, with flooding and the many costs that this has. Also the forest fires that we've seen in different parts of Europe and different parts of the world. So yeah, we believe there is a lot of value in uniting our forces. And of course, we had some strong momentum again in the climate COP in Glasgow last 2 weeks, growing, and with that we believe a lot of new investment will be freed up. We will of course always carefully check if there is based solutions followed, and we also really hope that IUCN can play a role in bringing together all the key actors and key stakeholders to work on this. And I look forward to also hear your questions and to have this exchange and to see how we can also offer our services and support to you. Thank you very much.
Chantal, many thanks indeed. That was timed down to the microsecond. Thank you so much for that. One of the great features of the Wales Green Infrastructure Forum is that we always leave at least as much time for questions as we do for the presentation itself. One of my colleagues was unable to be here today because he had another meeting, So I promised to put my his questions to you in the chat there. And his first one to get us started while everybody else is thinking about their questions is how. What are your thoughts on addressing the gap in between policy and implementation?
Yes, that's a very important question, and of course, a very challenging one. I've been working now with IUCN for the last 15 years in Europe, following very closely the policy discussions. And of course, we also are deeply engaged in the scientific work on biodiversity. And we still see that gap quite strongly where the scientific information, all the knowledge that we have, does not always find its way into the political decision-making process. At the same time, however, we've seen quite a growing momentum in policy, in particular with the European Green Deal, which for the first time has said that every sector of the economy and policy should integrate natural capital. And that is for us now the basis of the work. And of course, we still see policy areas that are not taking that as far as we wish, in particular agriculture, one of the main drivers of biodiversity loss. But we also see very positive developments where the EU is working on what we call a sustainable finance taxonomy, which is a way to make transparent what impacts business has, but also other decisions have on nature, and that there has to be accountability for that. And what we as an organization try to do is, of course, to bring together these actors, the scientists, the policymakers, the private sector, civil society groups, in order to get all these minds together and find common solutions. Of course, the main obstacle that I think we all are aware of is this economic equation that determines very often how decisions are made. And I personally believe in something that I call gross life product. So not our gross domestic product, but a way of measuring how we take account of our actions by integrating nature in every aspect of our life. Because if we don't do that, we will continue to see that nature is being overexploited. But then, yeah, of course, how can this work in practice? I think we see a number of good initiatives, and IUCN has been working as well, for example, with the private sector, where businesses across their value chains have agreed on standards for reducing impact on nature and biodiversity. And of course, that is often easier for big corporations that have some budget to invest in this. But we also see, of course, a lot of new momentum with smaller organizations and enterprises that have very innovative ideas on nature. And we try at the policy level and the funding level to provide new resources for these types of ideas so that they can find their way to the market, and that people can also see there is a different option, there is an alternative. But in the end, I think the most important is that we keep communicating and that we also find a common language, because that is another issue, that we often speak different languages. And for IUCN, this concept of nature-based solutions was one way of addressing that, as the word biodiversity can sometimes be a bit abstract and hard to understand what that really means. But a nature-based solution, so for example, the restoration of a river ecosystem in order to prevent flooding is easier to communicate and also easier to see. And what we also try to do is to take people to see with their own eyes how this worked, and to have this dialogue, for example, with a city that has decided to invest in nature-based solutions, what it took for them to do so in terms of political decision making, but also bringing together the investment to implement it. So yeah, I think it's very much about that ongoing exchange and interaction and learning from demonstrated good examples.
Many thanks. I think when Richard comes to view the recording of this webinar, he'll find that an excellent answer to his question. I don't know if you can see the chat at the moment, but Liz Mills has asked a couple of questions. For me, the key one is the subnational climate finance initiative available to local authorities in the United Kingdom?
Unfortunately, not yet at this moment, as this is a initiative funded through a international scheme that focuses quite a lot on developing countries. I must say at the same time that there is quite some growing momentum in Europe, and we have been discussing with a number of similar organizations now who believe that there is a potential in particular for integrating nature in the European emissions trading scheme. But also to mobilize new investment through this European Green Deal, where it's about bringing public and private funding together for these types of solutions. So that is something we're working on. And we're currently doing a study for the European Investment Bank to look at the current access to finance for nature-based solutions. So we hope that with that, we get a good idea of what is currently available, as there are often also European funding mechanisms that are not fully exploited for this type of purpose. And I think, yeah, with the results of the climate COP, there are also new actions, new initiatives going to be funded that will help municipalities. There is the natural capital financing facility of the European Investment Bank that does provide such support, but it's on a loan basis. So it has to be based on a model that provides a return on investment. And we've seen now a few examples from Greece and I believe from Croatia on the urban side. So there are also examples on nature that go more at a landscape scale. For example, Rewilding Europe has been able to access that funding of the European Investment Bank. So yeah, it's not maybe yet at the level where we wish to see it, but I think it's going to grow. And what might be interesting to look at is this idea of green bonds, which has now been established by some cities, in particular in the Nordic countries. And Paris is an example where a fund has been established with very little investment from the city, but with major investment from the private sector, based on the willingness to have a good return, but also to support the city in creating climate adaptation measures. And as part of these climate adaptation measures, nature plays an important role. So I'm happy to also share some more information on that, or bring you in contact with some of the cities in Europe that have been doing this. And yeah, that's also something I can do after this meeting to provide some resources and links that might be helpful in this context.
That will be absolutely wonderful. I mean, many of our members can't be here today, so that I know they would appreciate that. And I think running directly along from that is a question from Rachel Auckland in the chat, saying, you know, Wales is a small nation, and that yeah, with many of our towns and cities which appear quite rural, we've got difficulty in getting across to our leaders the importance of nature restoration. And she was wondering, are there any of the tools that you've mentioned which would be particularly relevant in the case of small towns and cities in rural areas?
Yes, I think we, as part of this Network Nature project that I mentioned, what we're trying to do now is to establish some what we call hubs across Europe, where we start to look at yeah, where the current champions are for nature-based solutions action across different ecosystems, and to see how we can help them to do more, in particular when it comes to that awareness raising. As I think there are some interesting campaigns, especially in Germany. I've seen quite some strong action for engagement of citizens and yeah, also involvement in decision making. I think some cities like Ghent here in Belgium has a process where citizens can really be part of deciding on a certain part of the city budget, and their ideas are really taken on board. I've seen such examples as well from municipalities in Poland. So in the Grow Green project, we work with the city of Wrocław, and they told us that at the moment there is a plan to work across all municipalities for upscaling nature-based solutions jointly. So I could see what type of approaches they have used. I think what also was an important part of the process in this Grow Green project was to make space for natural solutions in procurement of new planning of city of areas in the municipality. So we can share also some information on that. We've done also a webinar on citizen engagement. So in the end, I think, yeah, it's very much about bringing together the ideas. And I also realized that in practice, we see that often the funding and subsidies go to well-known bigger organizations, or are decided a bit top down. But once we are able to show that good ideas are there, I think then there must be mechanisms to bring that also closer to the decision making processes. And that's certainly not easy, but I believe that there are some examples of this, and I can indeed also share some of those from the projects that we work with. And maybe you also may want to have a conversation with some of our partners in different European countries to hear how they have done that. So I hope that helps.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. And we've only got about 5 minutes left before this webinar ends. So there's one question about, have you got any evidence of successful habitat banking? Where perhaps local small-scale habitat is being used. And that's from Wendy Richards.
I'm not so deeply involved in habitat banking, so I think that is linked to the offsetting. If you have new development and you have impacts on nature, you need to also compensate for these impacts. Is that, I understand correctly? Yeah.
I believe that's the case. Yes.
Yeah. So IUCN, first of all, has this what we call mitigation hierarchy, which is about, first of all, trying to protect what we have, and as a last resort, look at how we indeed bank on the differences that are created by reducing by harming nature. Sorry, my camera was switching. So do I have examples? I must say I would need to look for those. I know that there are, of course, a growing number of restoration actions taking place across Europe, and the EU has funded recently 4 new projects of a total value of 80 million in terrestrial and marine landscapes that focus on replicable models for restoration. And I believe that, some of that may have also linkages to habitat banking. Some of that focuses on forests, and others focus more on coastal areas. I personally find it sometimes a bit challenging to see how this can fully work, as we know that, taking an old and pristine nature area, replacing that with newly developed and new growth, for example, forests or ecosystems, is not the same in terms of biodiversity value. And we have to be very careful in making up the balance in how we replace certain things. I believe in that context, what is important, and some municipalities do this very well, is this accounting for the value of nature, so that we start to see much better what the benefits are of a green space, of an urban forest, of an urban wetland, in the whole context of municipal budget decision making. Because as I said, these values are not always taken into account effectively. Once we start doing that, we can also better protect them. And I know from a small municipality in Canada that they have done that very successfully. And they started with the value of their groundwater sources, and how much that provides in terms of clean drinking water, but also in filtration. So natural systems help to filter water, so that cleaning is not necessary, but also for many other functionalities that we often consider invisible, but are so essential for our day-to-day life. So I think that valuation comes as well with good compensation measures and habitat banking. But I'm going to look for some information to share with you on that.
That's brilliant. In the last couple of minutes that we've got, I probably have to miss out loads of questions, but one important question that Mary O'Connor has posted is the UK able to participate in IUCN Europe initiatives, or is it just restricted to members of the European Union?
No, certainly not. UK is as much a partner in our work as it was before the Brexit, which we of course regret very much that that this is the case. We work across Europe. We also work with non-EU countries like Switzerland and Norway, and also Serbia and the Balkan countries. So for us, what matters is that we join forces to protect nature. And for some of the EU funding schemes, we can see that there are some changes, but I think it's still possible to be partners in European projects, but also in other ways. And yeah, we also see how much we can learn from the experiences in the UK. IUCN has a national committee in the UK, and I'm happy also to provide the contact details with you. We have many members in the UK, and for us, that is the mechanism for cooperation, which goes in parallel with the EU types of mechanisms. So we certainly look forward to continue this cooperation.
Thank you so much. I think we're about to get cut off, and I just wanted to thank you so much indeed for your time today. The immense knowledge that you've shared with us. This recording is going to be incredibly valuable to those of us that couldn't be here today. So Chantal, thank you once again. Thanks for giving us your time this morning. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Pete, and thank you to you all. And I hope we stay in contact, and I look forward to work together.
Wonderful.
Thank you.